Welcome to my cherry guide for UFO 50's Bug Hunter. The cherry requirement is to beat job 6 without resetting. I'm going to go over everything you need to know before showing the run, but if you're interested, there'll be a timestamp on screen to go to my successful run, so that you can see the information in action. Once you start a day, you cannot reset the game as it saves at the beginning of the day. You can, however, save and quit after each day and come back later. The goal is to kill 30 bugs to complete a job, which you can see at the top left of the screen. For the first 3 jobs you have 10 days to accomplish this, meaning an average of 3 kills a day, but for the final 3 jobs you have 1 less day to accomplish this. Enemies that are fully evolved will turn into eggs, which is significant as eggs don't count towards your kill count. Also, if there are any eggs alive at the end of a day, you'll get a game over. You can see which day you're on currently by looking at this counter here. You can also see your energy, which is a currency used to buy new modules, which are the tools we have at our disposal. You can take your time with planning each turn since there's no time pressure. I often plan out my routes before making my first move. This game acts a bit like a deck builder, where you'll try to get modules that synergize well together to most effectively kill the bugs. We will go over how modules work and what each module does in a little bit. First I'm going to go over some of the other elements of the game. There are 3 states each floor tile can be in. It can be either normal, elevated, or a hole. Some movement and attacks cannot go through elevated platforms, so sometimes it can be tricky to traverse. Each turn, 4 new energy will drop into the map. The energy can fall into holes and be lost. You can run into the energy to collect it, which is the currency we use to buy new modules. The energy is explosive, so if attacked it will destroy anything in a 1 block radius, including other energy. Keep an eye out for the indicator to make sure you don't hit yourself whenever you hit one. Any explosions cannot travel to ground of a different height. If 3 energy occupy the same spot, it will explode, so make sure you're not standing next to 2 energy at the end of a turn, since that can end your run. Yes, you're seeing this footage correctly, I foolishly stood next to 2 energy only 1 kill away from the cherry when I had plenty of days to play it safe. You can also push enemies into energy to kill them. There are 3 different types of bug, and each of them have 2 evolutions that alter how they work. I've only tested this slightly, but I believe if you save and quit after a job you can practice the next job instead of going straight into it. This is significant since each bug will be set in stone what it will evolve into, and you can use the practice to find out what you're up against before going into the main job. I only found this out after I got my cherry, but I'd suggest saving and quitting after each day, going into practice and letting the bugs evolve to see what you're up against, and then reset the game and go into the main day with that information. Each bug can evolve twice before becoming an egg. The first evolution will dictate what version of the bug will show up for that job. The second does nothing special other than moving it 1 step closer to becoming an egg. And then after that turn, any living at max evolution will become an egg. If an egg is alive at the end of a turn, the game will end and you will lose. A bug can only evolve if there is one of that type alive at the end of the turn, so consider your targets with this in mind. It also seems that the bug with the most of its type around is the one to evolve. Once the type of bug has evolved, any future bugs of that type that appear will be at the same evolution state, except for eggs. Eggs appear only when one of the final evolutions make it to the end of a turn. For the red bugs, they can either evolve into Shreknid or Dragonflush. In my opinion, the red ones are always the most awkward to deal with, so I tend to focus them when I can to stop them evolving. The Shreknid will shoot projectiles outwards when it dies, but not diagonally. These projectiles are blocked by walls and cannot travel to lower elevation either. The projectiles only travel 2 spaces, but since most attacks only have that range, it makes them awkward to deal with. That said, you can move into them to crush them without worrying about the projectiles. Without diagonal hitting attacks, these can be a real pain. The Dragonflush will spawn an ally next to it which will protect it from hits. It cannot be killed until there are no adjacent allies first. You can however push their allies away in order to hit them. Alternatively, it's possible with attacks to hit them both at the same time, in which case you'll kill them both. For the blue bugs, they can evolve into the Phaloris or the Quasnar. The Phaloris affect elevation a lot, since when they spawn they'll make the space they're on elevated. They're one of my favourites to get since there are some modules that make dealing with them trivial. That said, getting modules is somewhat random and can be unreliable, but this is one of those cases where with the right module this enemy type is actually beneficial to have. The Quasnar on the other hand are a real pain. They make any nearby energy anti-energy, which means that you cannot collect them for energy until the Quasnar is killed. The anti-energy also will not explode if you hit it, although it will increase the amount on that space by 1. You can use this to get a second energy to spawn just before you kill the bug, but be careful as if you make 3 anti-energy, an egg will spawn on that location. You should not push bugs into anti-energy as well, as it will evolve them instead of destroying them like normal energy would. Also, if you collect the anti-energy, it will remove that number from your energy count. If you don't have any energy, collecting the anti-energy will not have any effect other than removing that energy from play. And finally for the pink bugs, the Armadon and the Cephalug. The Armadon are arguably the simplest one, they simply have 2 hit points instead of the usual one. Although they're the simplest, they're not the simplest to deal with. Whenever you come across these, try to think about the option of crushing them instead of hitting them, since that will insta-kill them. I'll go over it a bit later when we go over the modules, but you can use movement modules as opposed to attack modules to kill bugs, and killing the bugs in this way is very effective. So try to play around elevation and holes. It's worth noting that when they turn into eggs, they'll go back to having only 1 HP. The Cephalug creates holes when they die. The issue with these bugs is they can make traversal awkward. If you kill them with movement, however, no holes will be created. Arguably, I find this one of the easier ones to deal with. Just try to get movement modules that make traversal a bit easier, such as the jump module. So now let's talk about modules. Each job you start with the same modules: 4 run modules, a hop module, a shoot module, and a lob module. We'll go over what these and every other module does shortly. You can only have these 7 module slots, but you can replace these modules with better ones using energy. You get energy by collecting the energy cubes. You can buy new modules by pressing down arrow, just bear in mind it will replace whatever module you currently have selected. You can press X to cancel any shopping. When you buy a module, it will be available to use that turn. You can also get it to replace a slot that's already been used, so make sure you've used the current module first if you can to get the most out of it. There are 3 different module types: M, A, and S. Movement, attack, and special. Attacks aren't the only way to kill enemies, you can also use movement in some cases. With standard movement, you can push enemies, which is significant as you can push them into energy or holes to kill them. Alternatively, if you're on an elevated platform, you can move down from that platform onto an enemy to crush it. You will get a random assortment of modules that you can purchase, and in order to get any new ones, you have to buy one and it will be replaced by a random new one. Sometimes you can get screwed over here if you continue to not get any of the modules you need. Your shop can have no attack modules at all, for example. Each module has a purchase cost between 2 and 4 energy. So to start with, let's go over the attack modules. The shoot module can attack in a line, but not diagonally. It hits any enemies or energy between yourself and the target, so can be useful to take out multiple enemies. It cannot hit enemies on a higher elevation. Lob is similar to shoot, but can attack enemies on a higher elevation or through walls. It cannot hit multiple enemies with the same attack though. Blast is the same as shoot, but it can hit diagonally as well. Just a more versatile option. This costs 2 energy to purchase. Throw is basically the same as the lob, but can hit diagonally, which is very useful. Since you cannot easily dictate where the enemies spawn, I find this more reliable than blast or shoot, since you don't have to worry about elevation or walls. It's rare that enemies spawn together where blast or shoot is useful, although it does happen. Throw costs 2 energy as well. Next we have snipe, which also costs 2 energy. It can attack all the way down the line, but it will not be able to hit enemies on higher elevation. It hits any enemies or energy on its way to the target. Annihilate is similar to snipe, but allows you to hit diagonally as well. It costs 4 energy to get this attack. The launch module is arguably the most versatile attack. It costs 4 energy to get, but can hit on any elevation like lob or throw, and can hit any space within 2 blocks, so there's no awkward safe spaces for enemies that you might find using throw. Radiate costs 3 energy cubes. It attacks all locations adjacent to you. It has its uses for clumps of enemies if you can get in the middle of them, but generally I prefer having other attacks since this one is such short range. Burst causes an egg to explode. Honestly, this is not incredibly useful since you often don't want to allow any bugs to get to this point. It costs 4 energy, so it's very expensive for not much benefit in my opinion. It can be incredibly useful in certain cases, for example where there are a lot of enemies around an egg, or where you can set off a chain reaction of explosions with it, but I often find other attacks to be much more reliable. Erupt attacks all locations adjacent to any one hole. Since this costs 4 energy cubes to get, it often doesn't justify the cost, especially since there's often only 1 or 2 holes on the map. That said, in certain jobs it can be very effective, particularly ones with the Cephalug. Alternatively, you can combo it with the dig module we'll go over later on, since that will give us more ground to play with. The bombard module attacks all elevated locations. This is one of my favourite modules to play with, you'll see me use it multiple times in my run. Always look out for this on maps with the Flores, as they create many elevated platforms. This costs 4 energy, so it's quite expensive, but great situationally. There are also a couple modules that we can use to create our own elevation, so this works incredibly when comboed with those. Just make sure you're not on an elevated platform yourself when you use this. The detonate module detonates an energy cube at any location, and it costs 4 energy. Not a bad attack to have, particularly if comboed with another module we'll go over later. And finally, engage. This module refreshes when you change elevation. It costs 4 energy and it's honestly not very useful in my opinion since it's so limited in its attack, only being the equivalent of shoot. That said, if you have the ability to change elevation a lot, you can make use of it. I just find that in cases where you're changing elevation a lot, you can utilise movement to jump on enemies instead. Now let's go over the movement modules. The run module is the standard movement. You can move up to 2 spaces but cannot move diagonally. You also cannot move up elevation. That said, if you're elevated beforehand, you can move onto an enemy to kill them. You can also push enemies. This can be used to put them next to explosives or put them into holes. As I mentioned earlier with the Armadon, it's worth noting you can use movement to kill them more easily since it will kill them instantly. The hop module is a movement ability that allows you to move onto higher elevation, through walls or over holes. It cannot move diagonally though. It can't be used to push enemies, but can be used to drop on enemies that are 2 spaces away since the standard movement can only kill them if the enemy is next to you. The dash module is a more versatile option of run, which gives the option to move diagonally as well. It can also push and do the same as the standard run module. This costs 2 energy to purchase. The jump module is the dash equivalent for the hop. The jump is great and allows you to move diagonally as well. Great to get these when you can, as they give you plenty of options. Generally, I always prefer jump and hop to the other movement modules. The sprint module allows you to move in a straight line along the entire map, but not diagonally. This is also assuming there's no walls or holes in the way. The sprint module costs 2 energy. The zoom module is like the dash module, but you can move as far as you want, assuming there are no obstacles in the way. This one costs 4 energy, so I often don't go for this unless I have an abundance of energy. The vault module allows you to jump to any space within 2 blocks. Basically the most versatile movement option we have available to us, which makes sense since it costs 4 energy cubes to get. The warp module allows you to move to any location with an energy cube. It has its rare uses for repositioning, but not very reliable, so I often don't go for this one. It costs 3 energy cubes to get as well, so it's hard to justify the cost in my opinion. It can be useful when comboed with some later modules we'll go over that allow us to place energy cubes on the map. The transport module allows you to move to any elevated location. It costs 3 energy. It's useful on maps where there's heavy elevation, like ones with a Phalurus. The tunnel module allows you to move to any location adjacent to a hole. Again, this one costs 3 energy, and on most maps it's not very useful since there's not many holes, but on maps with the Cephalug it can be great to traverse an otherwise tricky landscape. And finally, the maneuver module. This module refreshes when you kill a bug. It costs 4 energy, but it's great to combo with a lot of attack modules, although it is limited in its movement as it acts like the run module. You can combo this with some other modules we'll go over later for great effect. So now time for the special modules. The resupply module allows you to add an energy cube to any location, and it costs 2 energy to purchase. This can be useful if gotten early as an investment, but generally I don't go for this often since it doesn't pay for itself until 3 days in. It is good if comboed with a few other modules though. You can combo this with the warp movement module to basically pick any place to move, although I still struggle to justify the 2 slots that takes up. Alternatively, you can combo it with the detonate module to choose location to bomb. The collect module allows you to collect any energy cube and all cubes adjacent to that. It costs 2 energy. Does what it says on the tin. Often you can buy this and then use it to collect at least 2 energy cubes, which is useful to cycle out one of the shop modules. Interestingly, you can combo this with resupply since you can use resupply to connect more energy cubes, so you can collect more at once. The shift module allows us to lower the ground in one place and raise it somewhere else. It costs 2 energy. It's not very useful by itself, but when comboed with bombard, it can be very effective. The invert module lowers all elevated platforms and raises any lowered locations. It costs 2 energy. If you have this and bombard in your shop, I recommend going for those since they can be comboed to great effect. The ability to flip the entire map is incredible, but if you don't have bombard, it's not very useful outside of that. Again, when using bombard, just make sure that you're not going to be on an elevated platform yourself. The spray module allows you to spray 2 open locations and prevent bugs from spawning there. It costs 2 energy to get this module. Useful if gotten early since any sprayed spots could remain sprayed for the duration of the job. That said, I find it awkward to plan around, so generally avoid this module when I see it. The traverse module allows you to freely move across walls, assuming you use it before you use your movement modules. It will also reset on your next rest, but just remember to activate it before your next turn and you'll be fine. This module costs 2 energy. It's useful on jobs with the Phalurus, otherwise I'd say it isn't really worth the slot. It can be comboed with another module we'll get to shortly though to great effect. Generally, I would just take jump modules and stuff like that over traverse. The aim module allows you to freely attack through walls until your next rest. It costs 2 energy. It's great in conjunction with sniper or annihilate since they have unlimited range. Not very useful if you have attacks like lob or throw though. The devolve module reverts any bug and all bugs adjacent to it to its larval form. It also works on eggs. It costs 3 energy. It's useful for clumps of enemies, but usually you don't want to allow enemies to build up. It can be utilised in jobs against the Dragonflush or the Armadon to great effect though, in my opinion. Since for the Dragonflush it will mean that you don't have to take out their ally, and for the Armadon it means they'll only have 1 HP. Also, it's good for eggs, since it means that you can get a kill for killing the bug, where eggs don't usually count for the score. Also, obviously it's good since it can remove eggs that could cause a game over. It definitely has its situational uses, but generally not a module I'm looking for. The power-up module allows you to destroy bugs before moving into them, up until your next rest. With these ones that say until your next rest, you have to use them every single turn, so remember to activate them before using your movement abilities. This is an incredibly powerful module. It costs 4 energy, but allows you to invest a lot more into movement to kill bugs. It works incredibly well with the maneuver module since it can continue resetting when you're moving into the bugs. You can also combo this with traverse since it allows you to travel through terrain. It's worth noting that the Armadon will die instantly to this attack, so look out for this module when on a job with them. The barrage module refreshes all attack modules. It costs 4 energy, so it's expensive, but often is great value in occupying a slot since as it says on the tin, it doubles your attacks. Accelerate refreshes all your movement modules. It costs 4 energy, similar to barrage but for movement. Again, very useful if you can afford it, particularly in combination with power up since if you use it with that you should have enough movement to wipe out the map. With these comboed together you can effectively ignore attack modules. The scatter module forces all bugs to move to a random nearby space. It costs 4 energy cubes, so it's not cheap. I personally didn't experiment much with this one as it seems unreliable and expensive. Potentially it can be used to move enemies to lower ground, but honestly I didn't use this module much. The maximize module gives movement and attack modules maximum range. Again, this is one that you have to activate at the beginning of each turn. It costs 4 energy. Honestly I didn't get much use from this one since you still have to work around terrain. It's worth considering though as it may be useful when comboed with power up and other modules. The replenish module requests the delivery of 4 more energy cubes. It costs 4 energy cubes to begin with, but can be great if comboed with collect or other modules that work well off energy cubes. Just be wary of being too close to spaces with 2 energy cubes already, as again, if 3 energy cubes occupy a slot, it will explode. The intensify module means that whenever you attack a bug, it will explode. Once again, one that works until your next rest. It costs 4 energy, and is useful situationally, but be careful of getting caught in the explosions. You can always stand on an elevated platform and shoot down to try and mitigate the threat of that. Since explosions do cover a good portion of the map, it can be a good option if you haven't got any other good module combinations available. This module is also useful against the Dragonflush, since the explosion will tag both enemies and will kill the main bug in the process, so keep an eye out for this module in jobs with that bug type. The recharge module refreshes modules to the left and right. It costs 4 energy. It can be great in certain situations, but since you can't organise your hotbar, I find it difficult to work around. Great if you have 2 powerful modules to reset with it though. And finally, the dig module. The dig module allows us to dig a hole adjacent to a hole that already exists. You can also dig under bugs to kill them. This module costs 4 energy. As it says, this can be used to kill bugs, but it's so limited in its use and is so expensive that I find it awkward to justify getting. That said, it can be comboed with tunnel, although since it can only create holes next to other holes, it's still not great for this purpose. Alternatively, you can combo it with erupt, but it has a similar problem, where it only extends the range by 1 place. And now for the run itself. I'll cut around a lot of thinking since I do take a while sometimes. So for turn 1, I honestly could have used my movement to kill more. Since there are 2 bugs lined up though, I can get 2 with shoot. And with the energy I've collected, I buy throw to take out 1 more. I'm happy since I've taken out any red bugs and they'll always be my focus. And now I'm truly happy as the blue bug has evolved into Flores and I can see a bombard and the shift ability in the shop, making this job trivial as soon as I get the energy. For day 2, I'm focusing on getting the red bugs and getting energy so that I can use bombard next turn. I don't mind the blue bugs evolving again, as with bombard, they'll never be turning into an egg on future turns. And for this turn, my priority is getting enough energy for bombard and I can take out any other bugs while I'm at it. On this turn, no blue bugs spawn, so I won't get many easy kills. It is the first example where I use movement to kill a bug though. Since I'm on an elevated platform, I can crush this red bug by moving onto it. Also in general, I won't buy any modules on turns when I won't be using them, since I can make use of the old module on the next turn as well as the new one I purchase. On this turn, I decide to grab the shift ability to combo with the bombard I already have. Obviously I have plenty of options to take out these bugs, but can make it super simple with bombard. You'll see when I use the shift I usually bring any energy cubes down, just to give me the option of picking them up later instead of destroying them with bombard. Here I only need 3 more kills, so I'm going to shift up one of the bugs and bombard to end this job. You can see how strong bombard is against Phaloris, and I didn't even have to let any of the other bugs evolve. For job 2, the starting position is not really ideal for me. I can see my target though, the red bug, and then I'll take out as many others as I can along the way. The energy spots on this first day are also really awkward to get to, so I can't get my hands on many of those either. The pink bugs evolve into Armadon, meaning they have 2 hit points now. Here I push one of the pink bugs into the hole to instantly deal with it. Another option for me here to take out another would be to buy the jump module, jump to elevation next to one of the other bugs and move onto it to crush it. Instead I opt to buy the maneuver module. For this day I honestly fumble it a little bit. I use my only way to get elevation to get some energy, meaning I can't use it to kill any of the pink bugs. I do spend some energy to buy throw so that I can at least finish off the bug I weakened. I replace one of the move modules I have since I have more movement than I need at this moment. Generally I wouldn't want to replace a module I haven't used, but in this case I can't get much use out of it from this position. Perhaps a better alternative would have been to buy jump to the elevation behind the bug for the energy, and then move down to crush it. I do now buy jump after the fact to get more energy. So now we have our first case of eggs. If we don't deal with them this turn, we'll lose the game. 2 more Armadons spawn in a very favourable position, so I can crush one and push the other into a hole. I use maneuver to do this since it will reset from the kills. I then take care of the blue bug over the wall, move to shoot this bug and egg that are lined up, and use throw to destroy the final egg. Here I arguably should have used my movement to crush this final bug, but for some reason I instead decide to get some energy, just an oversight by me I think. So to start with I line up shoot on these 2 bugs here, I then use lob to kill the bug over the wall. I then opt to use maneuver again to line up with the elevation at the top of the screen since it will reset after I use throw to finish off the Armadon I weakened. From here I hop onto the elevation to crush the Armadon and then push the blue bug into some energy to finish them off. I then opt to collect the energy in the bottom corner since it's a bit of an awkward one to reach. For this turn, I start by shooting this nearby bug, and since I have a lot of energy stockpiled, I opt to then swap it with Burst. Burst can blow up any eggs on screen, but as you can see it will not hit the bug on the lower elevation. I then continue through taking out the rest of the bugs. I use throw to kill the bugs that's elevated first, since I can then jump up there and use this elevation to take out the other bug. Then I replace lob with snipe to take out the final bug, although in hindsight, I would have potentially replaced burst, since in an ideal scenario there won't be any eggs for me to destroy. For this turn, I use the modules I have to take out most of the bugs. I don't have particularly good build for this job, but thanks to maneuver and jump, I can use the movement to take out a lot of the bugs. I'm not too worried about leaving the bug on the left, since I have burst, which I can use to take care of it next turn. Here you can see if I use burst from this position it will kill me. It would also hit 4 bugs, and since I only need 4 more kills to end the job, that could have been a good option, although I would still have to hit the Armadon at the bottom again to get the second hit on that. Instead I take a different approach, but I could have made using burst here work. So after taking out the 3 bugs at the top, I use burst to take out the egg, and more importantly, the final bug to end this job. Pretty standard stuff to start out job 3. I buy throw at the end, replacing one of my move modules to take out another red bug. And I hit the jackpot again. The blue bug evolves into a Florist while I have Bombard and Shift in the shop. Here I wanted to push the bug into the hole, but the energy cube is actually in the way of that. I use Shoot to work around that, and then I focus on getting rid of the pink bugs since I don't have to worry about the blue ones evolving again. For this turn, I immediately get enough energy from Bombard, so I focus on taking out the non-elevated bugs and then I'll invest in Bombard after. I choose to replace Shoot with Bombard since I have Lob and Throw for other attacks if I need them. From here my setup is great for this job. I'll get Shift later on to combo with Bombard when I need it, but from here I can wipe out every bug each turn easily. I collect more energy to give myself more options, but honestly, at this point it's a home run. I do this a fair bit, but at this point I'm overcomplicating things. There's only 4 more bugs needed to end the job, so I can end this job easily in many ways. So now from job 4 onwards, we'll have only 9 days instead of 10 to hit the 30 bug quota. In hindsight, I could have pushed this red bug here into the other so that I could kill both with Shoot. Instead, I mainly used this turn to collect energy. The return of the Armadon. Again, I missed the opportunity to push these red bugs together to get them both easily. My shop is looking kinda weak in my opinion, so I opt to buy Volt here to give me more movement options. It also allows me to take out the blue bug. I mistakenly used Volt here when I could have used Hop. This means that there ends up being 2 living pink bugs at the end of this turn, which will turn into eggs. And its next turn I get unlucky with 4 Armadon, which I really don't have the firepower to deal with. Here I plan to replace Shoot with Throw but miscalculated somewhere. I prioritised killing the red bug over the pink one even though I weakened it. By getting Jump as well though, I can crush at least one of the other bugs. This job is definitely one of my weaker ones. My shop is kinda weak, but at the very least it contains a mixture of each type of module, so I can work around it somewhat. I do take a long time deliberating, and also definitely don't make the correct choices every time. I opt to switch out Shift here for Collect, mostly just to continue cycling my store in hope of getting some better modules. Since I can quickly collect free energy, Collect pays for itself. And here the blue bugs evolve into the Quasnar. At this point, I thought the attempt was over since already my shop is terrible, and with the Quasnar, I'm less likely to get energy to cycle through it. Here I'm trying to cycle through the lower modules to get some better ones to spawn. Again, I get unlucky and I get Scatter here. Now I decide to buy the sprint module in order to kill 2 more of the pink bugs. With that, on a very rough job for me, we head to the final day, needing to kill 4 more bugs. Since it's the final day, none of the existing bugs will turn into eggs, which gives us a slightly better chance. Thankfully, with all the movement I've accrued, I can crush the remaining bugs I need by jumping on them. Here, despite my best efforts, we get our first red bug evolution. If you thought job 4 would be our only close call, be prepared for another one. Here I could have potentially left the pink bug alive to try and get that one to evolve instead, but now we have Dragonflush to deal with. We also get the Flores to evolve here. Unfortunately, there's no Bombard in my shop for me to abuse. Here I get replenished since I believe I can make good use of it to cycle through the store. Seemingly, when energy cubes drop, they will cause stacks of 3 whenever they have the chance. I consider trying to collect some energy before using replenish, but decide that letting it explode is a good option since it will take out one of the dragon floosh. Here I choose to swap replenish for snipe since I can kill this dragon floosh with its buddy. I then get the aim module in order to line up the 2 eggs and bug at the bottom right. After that, I'm happy to swap it back out for a blast module to take out another bug before ending this turn. Basically, since I haven't gotten a particular build going, my main strategy is to cycle through the shop using any attacks and movement that I can. I'm still on track to kill enough bugs, it's just a case that I have to apply the brain a bit more than I have been to get the most out of it. Going into the last day, fortunately I'm in a position where I only need to get 3 kills. And with that, we're on to the final job for the cherry. Thankfully, this one goes a bit smoother than the last 2. For our first evolution on job 6 we get the Quasnar, which is a shame as I find them the harder of the blue evolutions. I take Snipe here since it will allow me to destroy both pink bugs. I then move into the anti-energy. I was in a bit of an awkward position here to avoid it, but there isn't really a negative to collecting it now since I have no energy for it to remove. I can then use the remainder of my modules to clean up the rest of the bugs. And once again, I can't stop the red bugs from evolving on this day, so we get the other red evolution, the Shreknid. You may also notice I have no diagonal attack modules, and none in the shop either, which is a lot of fun. Here I'm not really sure what my plan was. I think I should have used shoot on the 2 I was near when I was in a position to do that. I think for some reason I was obsessing over crushing the one guy, but it ends up just making this turn really weird. I think reasonably I could have wiped the board here. At least I'm showing you don't need perfect play to win this one. At this point, with all the new Shreknids spawning, it felt pretty doomed, as I still hadn't got given a single diagonal hitting attack. I use one of my run modules since I plan to replace it in order to combo resupply and collect, which helps me gain a ton of energy. I use this energy to buy the maneuver module. The maneuver module even gets replaced by a power up module. I don't grab it on this run, but comboed with maneuver it would have been a fine win condition. For now I opt to continue with what I have, and I managed to clear the board using some energy to buy a snipe module. Again, it feels weird replacing a module I haven't used, but I opt to replace my final run module with a throw module so that I can hit this Shreknid on the diagonal. And I don't think properly about this energy cube here. If I travelled diagonally with jump, I could snipe the Shreknid and the cube while being in a safe spot. Unfortunately, this miscalculation means I have to leave it alive. Thankfully, this next turn I can clean the board by sniping this energy crystal and finishing off the last 3 bugs with my attacks. I decide not to collect more energy and end my turn here, since I like being central to the board and also being elevated is a good position to start in. And with 2 days left and only 1 kill remaining, I managed to finish off this Quagmire here to get the cherry. I made a lot of mistakes in my run, but just don't rush it and you should be able to get the cherry no problem. If you're interested in continuing the next few jobs, it will give you 1 less day to achieve the quota. Hopefully this guide was helpful. This game was a lot of fun and definitely reasonable, although sometimes the shop luck can be a bit frustrating. Hopefully this video clears up everything you need to know, but if you have any tips of your own or know any more great combinations, please leave a comment. Thanks for watching.